Great to be here. It is bright. And so this morning, Mike, Jeff, Andre, thank you for the talk. They've been talking about seizing the moments that matter. So what I want to do today is discuss two new products in our portfolio that are going to actually help seize on those moments. Those are going to be Moments IQ and Moments API. And for each one of these products, what I'm going to do is I'm going to describe what they are, what they do, and what are some of the use cases that you can leverage across your organization. I'm going to start off with Moments IQ, which is our zero-party data capture. And this is actually a product that's actually near and dear to my heart just because of my own professional background in the web analytics space. So not many of you know this, but 16 years ago, Mike and I started Tealium as a web analytics consultancy. It was really with the help of Jeff, being our founding investor, that we actually ended up pivoting it to a software company about 3 years later. But in our early years of consulting, there were really two types of engagements that we were getting pulled into by customers. The first one was around analytics deployments, where customers were asking us to deploy their analytics tags. And that's really where we came up with the whole concept of universal tag and a universal data layer, which Mike talked about earlier today. And that morphed into Tealium IQ, which really ended up creating the tag management category. But the second area was where customers were asking us to analyze their data in order to better understand their users. And that's something that's very, very hard to do in web analytics, and frankly, a little bit flawed, because web analytics is not about understanding users. Web analytics is about understanding the patterns on the website. It's about understanding the marketing campaigns and the effectiveness of the website in terms of all the different activities that are happening there. So it's not really user activity, it's web behavior activity. And I understand why customers want to do it, right? Because it's really easy to rely on analytics. Analytics is readily available. Google Analytics is free. You can just log into Google Analytics, get a free account, put the tag on the website, you start collecting data. You have access to a lot of reports. Those reports are pretty marketing friendly, and therefore marketers like to use them. But it's not user data. It's web behavior data. So how do you go about understanding the user behavior? Let's say somebody actually goes to the website and looks at women's clothing. It doesn't necessarily mean that, your assumption might be that there's a female audience, but it could very well be a husband buying a gift for their wife or daughter, right? Or somebody looks at football shoes more often than tennis shoes. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's a football player. It could be someone just buying those items for their kids. So how do you know if someone's a male or female? Or how do you find out if someone's actually a tennis player versus a football player? You just ask, right? And that's really where zero-party data comes in. So with first-party data, what you're doing is you're capturing real-time information on your web channels or digital channels, and you're analyzing those channels. So it's really information about your channels, your marketing campaigns, your websites, and that's exactly where web analytics comes in. With zero-party data, you're trying to get an understanding of your users. And the best way to collect that information is from the users. And that's really where zero-party is. So the whole term of zero-party data was something that was coined by Forrester. And they define it as data that customer intentionally and proactively shares with a brand, which can include preference-centered data, purchase intentions, personal context, and how an individual wants the brand to recognize them. And that's exactly what, and here's an example of what a zero-party question looks like. You go to a website and you get asked a question about what your intentions are. Are you looking for a new car or used car? So that's just an example purpose here. But this is exactly what Moments IQ has been designed to do. It's a tool that lets you create questions on your websites so you can start capturing your users' preferences, intents, and sentiments. And the way it works is very simple. What you do is you have to start with the question that you want answered, right? What's the one data point that's going to allow you to better understand your visitors? not your website, but your visitors. Let's say, what's your favorite sporting activity? Or what's your favorite Premier League team? Right? You start with the question, you log into Moments IQ, you create the question, you go through the whole process of formatting the question so it actually looks like your website. You decide how the question is going to be presented, whether it's going to be presented embedded in a web page or presented as a modal. You decide whether it's going to be a single response or multi-response. And once you're happy with the question that you've created, you save and publish it right within Tealium IQ. So it's got this full integration with Tealium IQ. So once published, the question is now live on the website. And once people answer the question, that data is now part of the data layer, part of the Tealium data layer, where you can decide how to leverage it. So if you're using Tealium client-side with Tealium IQ, you can go ahead and launch different campaigns based on the response that's provided. So if someone's favorite sport is tennis versus football, they're going to be thrown into a sport, a tennis-related campaign versus something else, right? And if somebody responded that their favorite team is going to be Chelsea, they're not going to be presented with merchandising tied to Manchester United or some of the other teams. So it's going to provide a much better experience client-side, but also server-side. If you're leveraging Audience Stream, the data is now available in Audience Stream as part of the attributes that are available to you, and you can start activating campaigns based on the responses provided. So you're providing a relevant experience across all the different channels just by asking that one question. Now, the big question we typically get is, well, how's this different than a survey? Well, it's similar to a survey that we're asking a question, but it's very different in terms of the workflow and the flow of the user. In a typical survey, what you're doing is you're basically asking your customers, hey, can you spare 5 minutes of your time to answer these 10 questions? That's not at all what we're doing here. Instead, we're asking a single question contextually on the website as the person traverses to the site, and you can control in terms of where that question is presented in order to maximize the response rate. So just by asking one question and not necessarily asking user information tied to the user, that's going to increase the response rate. So some examples, the questions that you ask can be around the user's preferences. What industry do you belong in? What's your favorite team? What's your favorite sport? It could be around their purchase intentions. Are you in the market for life insurance, auto insurance, home insurance? Are you in the market for an individual phone plan versus family phone plan? Or it could be around the decision cycle. Are you going to make a purchase now or within the next 6 months, right? And this is the type of question that you couldn't possibly answer with web analytics. You're only going to have to ask it, and you're only going to get that response if you actually ask that question from the user. So the big benefits, we've talked to a number of customers before we started building the tool, but also in the early access stage. And really, we see two key benefits here. Number one, response rate. We're not doing a full-blown survey. We're just adding embedded drip questions as the person traverses the website. And that's going to result in a much higher response rate than your traditional survey. The other one is the ability to progressively enhance the user profile as the person traverses the website and answers different questions. Again, these questions don't have to be asked all at once. They can be asked in a drip fashion. So an example would be on a sporting website, the first question might be, are you male or female? The second question might be, what's your favorite sport? In my case, it's going to be tennis. The third question, let's say I now buy tennis shoes, could be, hey, how often do you play tennis? And based on the response, you're going to know exactly how long it takes for me to wear off my shoes and when you can actually start targeting me with new pair of shoes, right? So it's really information. And I think, like everything else, there's going to be an art and science to this. This is actually, I would venture to say, this is probably the least technical product in our portfolio. So the technical expertise isn't going to be that drastic here. Instead, it's really the planning stage that's the most important. Start with the 2 or 3 questions that you could really leverage where you can start personalizing the content, right? So start with those and just really the art of knowing what those questions are and when to ask them and where to ask them. I do urge you to actually start, talk to us if you want to do a strategy session around what type of questions are relevant for your website. One recommendation I have, use ChatGPT. You'd be surprised what answers you get with ChatGPT. I actually tried it where I said, what are the type of questions that a B2B website can ask their visitors in order to improve the user experience? And just try that. You'll be surprised by the answers you're going to get. So that's Moments IQ. It's the ability to capture zero-party preferences on the fly. The next product is going to be Moments API. And this is a product that lets you fetch audience stream data with blazing speeds. So let me give you a lot of background. If you're doing personalization and your website has a high bounce rate, this product is for you. How many people here, I cannot see, how many people have know what the data layer enrichment feature is within Tealium? Show of hands. Okay, like less than 10% actually. So data layer enrichment is a feature that you get when you have both IQ and audience stream together. When you have these two products, there's a bidirectional integration between these two. The first integration is data from IQ to audience stream. So the data layer that you're defining in IQ is automatically made available in audience stream. Once available in audience stream, you can use that data to create different attributes, different visitor attributes, badges, audiences, and so forth, which is very, very, very valuable. But then the second integration is audience stream to IQ, and that's the data layer enrichment feature. Through data layer enrichment, those attributes and badges that you've created in audience stream are made available back to IQ as part of the data layer, and you can actually leverage them to further personalize your marketing activities on the website. Now, a lot of our customers are using it for personalization purposes. And if you have both IQ and audience stream, this is a feature that you get, and I absolutely urge you to take advantage of it. It's a fantastic feature. It's going to allow you to run personalization efforts. Now, having said that, there are some limitations with data layer enrichment. The primary one is just how fast you're going to get the response as the session starts. Because the way it works is, on the first tracking call of the session, there's a call that's made from the collect tag to audience stream. That then activates the session in audience stream, and from there, the data layer components or the attributes are pushed back into the data layer using the data layer enrichment service. So typically what's going to happen is you're going to get access to those attributes on the second tracking call of the session, not on the first tracking call of the session. Which means if you're trying to do personalization, on the first page of the session, you're not going to have access to the data layer enrichment data points, right? Now, that may not be a big deal, but for some customers, that is a big deal because they have a high bounce rate. And the industry average bounce rate is anywhere from 20 to 50%, depending on the type of website you have, depending on your industry, and so forth. So that's really where Moments API comes in. With Moments API, you can retrieve these mission-critical data points out of audience stream with blazing speed. And some of the features, we built this thing for speed. And the data points that we're seeing are absolutely phenomenal. In our early access tests, we're seeing speeds in the typically 40 to 60 millisecond range in order to retrieve data. So really, we can get this data very, very quickly. Also, unlike data layer enrichment, you don't need an active session to retrieve this data. You can actually retrieve this data from any source as long as you have access to internet connection. So if you're building, let's say, some sort of a mobile app, and your mobile app could use this data, you can actually use Moments API to retrieve that data. If you're trying to leverage Tealium data for some sort of an AI initiative, you can actually use Moments API to retrieve the data into your RAG application and so forth. So again, it's not limited to web. It can be used across different channels. As long as the data is in audience stream, you can retrieve it with very quick speeds. So the workflow is pretty simple, actually. What you do is you log into Moments API, and in order to retrieve information using the service, you create what we call engines. So you create an engine, you give it a name. As you're going through the configuration, you decide which data points you want to make available to the engine. Once you do that, you create it, and it's going to give you an endpoint that you can leverage from any application that you're using. So at that point, really, the only thing you need is an internet connection. And then you're going to get reports based on that. So it just gives you the ability to retrieve these data points very, very, very quickly. Again, we're super proud of the work that the team has done. Initially, we thought that this was going to be used for first-page personalization. That's really what we built it for, but it ended up being a tool that actually can be leveraged across multiple channels. So some of the use cases, obviously, we built it for first-page personalization, and we see that as the primary use case for the short term. But another use case that we've seen is one where we have customers that have multiple domains, and they want to provide a unified experience across those domains as the person traverses from one domain to another. And they don't want to rely on third-party cookies because third-party cookies are going away. So they're actually using Moments API to push some very key data points into the system. And then as the person goes from one domain to the next, they retrieve the information in real time, and now they can provide a relevant experience across all those domains. That's actually a use case that we didn't really think about, but we've seen customers leverage. And also, again, if you want to fetch this data, if the data is available in Audience Stream and you could use it on your mobile app, in your AI app, in your customer portal or whatever, that's really where Moments API comes in, because unlike data layer enrichment, you don't need an active session. The visitor doesn't need to be the website in order for you to get access to the data. You can actually get access to the data as long as you have an internet connection. So really proud of these two products. We have the Genius Bar. If you want to get a demo of these products, I absolutely urge you to go see them. Like any other product that we introduce, I'm actually more interested in some of the use cases that our customers start leveraging, and we had absolutely no idea. So actually, I would love to understand what those use cases are as we see more and more customers adopt these products. Thank you guys for your time. Really appreciate it.